If you survive my touch, you're worthy. Alien warrior challenged her human lover. The station called Lyrian Drift floated between three-star routes, quiet and old, built for meetings that were never meant to be easy. Its halls were wide, its lights soft, and its air carefully balanced so that many species could breathe without pain. Humans had been visiting it for years now, learning how to walk slowly, how to speak carefully, how to survive among beings who had never expected them to last this long. Evan stood near one of the clear walls, watching a distant blue star pulse gently. He kept his hands folded behind his back, the way he had learned to do around the Kari. It was not fear that guided the habit, but respect. The Kari valued control above all else, especially control of the body. Behind him, soft footsteps echoed, measured, precise, never rushed. She was coming. Commander Salira of the Kari did not wear armor on the station. Her people did not need it here. Her skin carried a faint silver glow, not light exactly, but something deeper, like energy held just beneath the surface. Her eyes, dark and reflective, could read heat, pulse, and emotion in ways humans still barely understood. To most beings, standing close to a Kari warrior felt like standing near a storm that refused to break. To Evan, it felt like standing near home. "You are early," Salira said. "I didn't want to be late," Evan replied, turning slowly. He smiled, small and calm. "I know time matters to you." "It does," she said. Then, after a pause, "but you matter more." The words were careful. Kari language had many rules when it came to closeness. She had broken several already just by saying that. They stood facing each other, a respectful distance apart. No touch, no accidental movement. The space between them felt heavier than the gravity of the station. Salira studied him, the way she always did before speaking about something difficult. Her senses told her many things: his heart rate, the steady rhythm of his breathing, the quiet tension he tried to hide. Humans were not good at hiding things from her, but Evan had learned to be honest in a way that surprised her people. "There is a matter we can no longer delay," she said. Evan nodded. "I figured there would be." Around them, the station continued its quiet life. Distant voices echoed faintly. Somewhere, a cargo door sealed. Life moved on, unaware that something old and dangerous was about to be spoken aloud. "You know our law," Salira continued. "You have studied it. You have respected it." "I have," Evan said. "Even the parts that don't make sense to me." "They are not meant to," she replied softly. "They are meant to protect us." She took a slow step closer. "Not enough to touch. Never enough to touch." "For a Kari warrior," she said, "bonding is not emotional alone. It is physical truth. Without it, the bond is considered incomplete, unstable." Evan swallowed. He had known this moment would come ever since he had chosen to stay on Lyrian Drift instead of returning to Earth, ever since he had chosen her. "You're talking about the touch," he said. "Yes." The word itself carried weight. Among the Kari, the touch was sacred and feared. It was not an act of affection. It was a test, ancient and final. Direct skin contact between a Kari and another species triggered the warrior's bioresonance field. For Kari bodies, it was natural, balanced. For others, it was overwhelming, painful, often fatal. No human had ever passed it. "No one is forcing you," Salira said quickly. "If you choose not to—" "I know," Evan said. "I know I can walk away." She watched him carefully. Her people believed that choice defined honor, but she also knew humans were strange about choice. They often chose things that hurt. "If I walk away," Evan said slowly, "what happens to you?" Salira did not answer right away. "The council will see our bond as incomplete," she said finally. "I would be reassigned. You would be sent back to human space, officially for your safety." "And unofficially?" Evan asked. She looked at him then, truly looked, and allowed herself something rare: pain. "Unofficially," she said, "I would be considered unfit for command." The words settled between them. Evan exhaled through his nose. "So this touch isn't really about me surviving." "No," Salira admitted. It is about truth. Silence stretched. Outside the station wall, the blue star flared slightly brighter. You don't want to challenge me, Evan said. I do not, she replied. I fear it. That surprised him. You fear it. I fear losing you, she said simply. And I fear what it means if you succeed. Evan laughed softly, not in humor but in disbelief. You're scared of me passing. Yes. He took a step closer. The air seemed to tighten as if the station itself noticed. If I pass, Celira said, then everything we believe about compatibility is wrong. Everything we have taught our young about limits. Evan stopped, still careful. And if I fail, then I will have asked someone I care for to face something I know can break them. They stood there, two beings from different worlds, balanced on the edge of a decision that had nothing to do with strength and everything to do with trust. Evan thought of Earth. Of long histories filled with failure, with humans stepping into places they were told they did not belong. Cold places, empty places, emotional places. Humans had never been the strongest, but they had learned how to stay. When is the trial? He asked. Celira's eyes widened slightly. You would accept it. I would consider it, he corrected. But yes, I would accept. You know the risks. I know you, Evan said, and I know myself. That was not an answer the Kari Council would understand, but Celira did. The chamber will be prepared, she said quietly. Observers will attend. Let me guess, Evan said. They don't expect much from me. They expect data, Celira said. And an ending, Evan nodded. Figures. As she turned to leave, he spoke again. Celira, she paused. You didn't challenge me because of law alone, he said. Did you? She looked back at him, silver light pulsing faintly along her skin. No, she said. I challenged you because I needed to know if what I feel is real or only something fragile pretending to be strong. Evan smiled then, not bravely, not foolishly, but warmly. Then let's find out, he said. The chamber was ancient, older than the station itself. Smooth stone-like walls curved inward, etched with symbols that glowed faintly when Celira entered. The observers gathered behind a transparent barrier, Kari elders, scientists, diplomats. A few humans watched too, their faces tight with concern. Evan stood alone at the center. He was not wearing protective gear. None was allowed. The touch required honesty, not shielding. Celira stepped forward, every movement controlled. Her body responded to the ritual automatically. The bioresonance field awakened, gentle at first like a distant hum. Evan felt it immediately. Not pain, pressure, like standing near something vast. Remember, Celira said, her voice steady though her pulse betrayed her. You may withdraw at any moment. Evan nodded. I know, she raised her hand. For a moment the entire chamber seemed to hold its breath. Her fingers moved closer, closer, and then contact. The instruments flared. Light surged across the walls. Observers leaned forward, expecting collapse, shock, the familiar signs. But Evan did not fall. His breath caught, yes. His muscles tensed, but his nervous system did not panic. It adjusted, searching for balance the way it always had. Inside Celira, something unexpected happened. Her resonance did not spike. It steadied. Her eyes widened as she felt it, her own energy responding, shifting, matching something outside herself. Evan looked up at her, eyes still clear. I'm still here, he said quietly. The chamber fell into stunned silence, and the trial did not end. The silence inside the chamber felt heavier than sound. The instruments continued to glow, their readings moving in patterns none of the observers recognized. Some leaned closer to the barrier, others stepped back as if distance might help them understand what they were seeing. Evan was still standing. Celira's hand remained against his skin. Every instinct she had trained for years told her that this moment should not exist. The bioresonance field that flowed naturally through her body should have overwhelmed him, forced his systems into chaos. That was how it had always been. But Evan's breathing slowed instead of quickening. His heart rate, visible on the display, did not spike. It adjusted. Celira felt it clearly now. The field was no longer one-sided. It was moving between them, shaped not by dominance or resistance but by cooperation. Her people had no word for this. Their science had never prepared them for it. "Commander," one of the elders said from behind the barrier, voice controlled but tight, "you must withdraw." Salira did not move. Evan looked at her, concern flickering across his face. "Are you okay?" The question struck her harder than any alarm. In the middle of a ritual designed to judge his worth, he was worried about her. "Yes," she said quietly, "I am." She slowly removed her hand. The field faded, not violently, not abruptly, but like a tide pulling back from shore. Evan swayed slightly, and Salira stepped forward without thinking, steadying him by the arm. The observers gasped at the second contact, but nothing dangerous followed. The reading stabilized. Evan took a deep breath and laughed softly, more from relief than joy. That was intense. Salira studied him closely. His skin showed no damage. His eyes were focused. His mind was present. "You should not be standing," an elder said. "The touch should have overwhelmed you." Evan turned toward the barrier. "With respect," he said, "it didn't." "That is impossible," another voice said. Salira straightened, her posture shifting from personal to commanding. "Then our understanding is incomplete." The council chamber erupted into low voices. Data streamed across the displays, analyzed and reanalyzed. Human observers exchanged looks of disbelief. One of them pressed a hand to the barrier, tears forming in their eyes. Evan felt tired now, but not broken. The sensation inside him was strange, like after a long emotional conversation, the kind that left him drained but clear. Salira stepped closer again, this time stopping just short of contact. "Tell me what you felt." Evan thought for a moment. "Pressure at first, like something big noticing me. Then balance, like my body realized it didn't have to fight, it just had to listen." Several scientists froze at the word. Listen. The Kari had always believed survival came from control, from mastering the body, mastering energy, mastering emotion. Listening was considered passive, weak. Salira turned to the council. The ritual was completed. "The ritual was disrupted," an elder replied. "This outcome does not align with tradition," Salira finished. "No, but it aligns with truth." She looked back at Evan, and something in her expression softened, no longer held back by fear. "The touch was meant to reveal worth," she said. "It has." "What does that mean for him?" a diplomat asked. "It means," Salira said, "that he did not survive by force or resistance. He survived by adaptation." The word spread through the chamber like a quiet shock. Adaptation. That was not how the galaxy saw humans. They were seen as fragile, emotional, short-lived, useful as diplomats, traders, thinkers, but never as beings who could share space with the most dangerous forms of life. Yet here Evan stood, living proof that the assumptions were wrong. The council withdrew for deliberation, leaving Salira and Evan alone in the chamber. The barrier dimmed, granting them privacy at last. Evan rubbed his hands together slowly. "So, did I pass?" Salira let out a sound that might have been laughter if her people used it the same way humans did. "Yes," she said, "in a way no one expected." He smiled. "That seems to be a pattern." She studied him again, not as a subject, not as a test, but as a person. "You were afraid." He nodded, "Very. Yet you did not withdraw." "No," Evan said. "Fear doesn't always mean stop. Sometimes it means go carefully." Salira absorbed that. Her people taught their young to eliminate fear through discipline. Humans, it seemed, carried fear with them and still moved forward. The council returned. Their decision was careful, formal, but the shift was clear. "The trial is concluded," the lead elder said. "The human Evan of Earth is declared bond-capable." The words echoed. For the first time in Kari history, the classification applied to a non-Kari. Gasps sounded beyond the chamber. Messages began spreading across networks, across stations, across worlds. Bond-capable. Salira felt the weight of it settle on her shoulders, not as a burden but as responsibility. The elder continued. The ritual will be reviewed, its purpose re-examined. Evan glanced at Salira. Does that mean? It means, she said softly, that we are no longer forbidden. Later, when the chamber was empty and the noise of history had moved elsewhere, they stood together by the station wall again. The blue star still pulsed gently, unchanged by the events it had witnessed. You didn't have to do this, Salira said. I know, Evan replied. I wanted to. She turned toward him, closer now than before. You have altered the way my people see the galaxy. He shrugged lightly. Humans have a habit of doing that without trying. She reached out, hesitated only a fraction of a second, then took his hand. This time there was no surge, no alarm, no test, just warmth. Across Kari space, scholars would later argue about what humanity truly brought to the stars: technology, creativity, curiosity. But Salira knew the answer. Humanity did not conquer danger. They stayed with it. And in doing so, they taught the galaxy a new meaning of strength. The news did not spread loudly at first. It moved quietly, the way important truths often did, passing from station to station, from council chamber to research hall, from whispered conversation to careful report. A human had completed the Kari touch and lived. Not only lived, but changed the outcome of the ritual itself. Evan did not feel like a symbol. He felt tired. The days after the trial passed slowly. His body needed rest, not because it had been harmed, but because it had worked harder than he understood. Adaptation, the scientists said, required effort even when it succeeded. Salira stayed close, though she gave him space when he needed it. This was new territory for her people. The touch had always been an ending. For them, it had become a beginning. You are being discussed, she told him one evening as they sat near the station's inner garden, a place filled with carefully chosen plants from many worlds. Across Kari space, Evan smiled faintly. That sounds dangerous. It is, she admitted. Not for you, for certainty. He looked around the garden, watching a slow-moving vine curl toward a source of light it could barely sense. Certainty tends to be fragile, he said. Salira considered that. My people believe certainty is strength. Humans used to believe that too, Evan replied. We learned otherwise. Visitors began to arrive, not crowds, not reporters, but observers, scientists who asked careful questions, diplomats who spoke in measured tones, warriors who watched silently, trying to understand how someone so physically unremarkable could carry such impact. Some Kari avoided him entirely. Others watched him with curiosity. A few watched him with fear. One young Kari trainee approached Salira one day while Evan rested. Commander, they said, voice hesitant, is it true that the human felt fear during the touch? Yes, Salira said. And survived? Yes. The trainee lowered their gaze. We are taught to remove fear before action. Salira looked toward the room where Evan slept. Perhaps, she said slowly, we should teach how to move with it instead. That thought unsettled many. On the human side, the reaction was different, pride mixed with worry. Earth had never asked one of its people to become proof of something so fundamental. Evan received messages filled with concern, encouragement, disbelief. One message stood out. It was short. You didn't prove we are strong. You proved we belong. Evan read it twice and closed his eyes. The council reconvened weeks later, this time with human representatives present as equals rather than observers. The chamber felt different now, less rigid, less certain. The classification of bond-capable must be defined, one elder said. If humans can adapt to Kari resonance, what else might they adapt to? Evan sat quietly beside Salira, hands folded, listening. A dangerous question, a diplomat said. Or an important one, another replied. Salira stood when invited to speak. The touch did not change the human, she said. It revealed what was already there. Humanity does not overpower incompatible environments. They endure them long enough to understand them. And if that endurance fails, an elder asked, Salira did not hesitate. Then they try again, or they mourn, or they learn, but they do not pretend the attempt was meaningless. Silence followed. Evan was asked to speak last. He stood slowly, aware of every eye on him. I'm not special, he said simply. I didn't train for this, I didn't prepare for it, I just stayed. Stayed? A scientist asked. Yes, Evan said. When it got overwhelming, I didn't push back, I didn't shut down, I stayed present. Humans do that a lot, with pain, with fear. With each other, the council listened. The galaxy is full of things humans shouldn't survive, Evan continued. But we don't always survive by being stronger. Sometimes we survive by being willing. Willing. That word appeared again and again in the reports that followed. New policies emerged slowly. Not dramatic declarations, but small changes. Joint research programs. Expanded compatibility testing. Cultural exchanges that focused less on protection and more on understanding. Some Kari resisted. Change always carried discomfort. But the proof could not be undone. Salira noticed changes within herself too. Her control was still there, but it no longer felt like a shield. It felt like a choice. One evening, she and Evan stood once more by the clear wall of the station. The blue star beyond it had become familiar, almost comforting. You altered my path, she said quietly. So did you, Evan replied. She turned to him. If the touch had ended differently, he met her gaze. Then we would have lived with that truth too. That answer stayed with her. Months later, the ritual itself was renamed. Not officially translated, but loosely understood across species. The trial of those who stay. Young Kari were taught its history, including the human who did not resist, did not dominate, and did not flee. Evan eventually returned to Earth, though not permanently. He became a bridge, not by title but by presence. Wherever he went, assumptions followed and quietly fell apart. Salira remained with her people, guiding them through a future that no longer had sharp edges drawn around it. They did not touch often. They did not need to. Across the galaxy, a new understanding settled in, slow but steady. Humanity was not dangerous because they were powerful. Humanity was dangerous because they refused to disappear. And because of that, they were finally seen, not as guests in the stars, but as part of them. The first conflict after the change did not come from war or weapons. It came from fear that had nowhere to hide anymore. A delegation from the Velith Collective arrived at Lyrian Drift 6 months after the trial was renamed. The Velith were old, careful beings made of layered tissue and slow chemical thought. They had avoided close contact with almost everyone for centuries. Their biology reacted badly to unfamiliar energy fields, sounds, even emotions. They had refused human contact before. Now they requested it. The station prepared quietly. No alarms, no crowds, just space, air, and time. Evan stood near the central hall again, older in small ways that mattered. His hair showed a little gray now. His posture carried more patience than tension. He was no longer just a visitor. He was a reference point. Salira joined him, her presence steady as ever. They asked for you by name, she said. That's worrying, Evan replied calmly. They believe, Salira continued, that if humans can remain present within Kari resonance, they may be able to remain present within Velith proximity. Evan looked at her. And can they? I do not know, she said honestly, but neither do they. That is why they came. The Velith delegation entered the hall surrounded by softly humming containment fields. Their forms shifted slowly, like clouds deciding what shape to take. Their voices emerged not as sound but as translated pulses carried through the station systems. We have observed, the Velith said. The human does not force compatibility, he allows it. Evan inclined his head slightly. I try not to get in the way. This confused them. The first meeting lasted hours. No touch, no pressure, just presence. Evan spoke simply, about Earth weather, about silence, about sitting with someone when words failed. The Velith listened. Their containment fields adjusted downward by a fraction. Scientists noticed. The second meeting came days later. One Velith requested reduced shielding. The risk assessments were careful, layered, hesitant. Evan stayed. When discomfort rose, he did not retreat. He breathed. He acknowledged it. He waited. The Velith did the same. The session ended without incident. News spread again, quieter than before but deeper. Human endurance was not passive. It was active attention. Celira watched all of this with a mixture of pride and concern. "You are becoming a solution," she told Evan one night. "I'm not trying to be," he said. "That is what worries me," she replied gently. Across the galaxy, policies shifted again. Humans were no longer just diplomats or explorers. They became anchors. Beings invited into unstable environments not to fix them, but to remain within them long enough for others to adjust. Some humans refused the role. Others accepted cautiously. Training programs formed not to harden humans but to teach self-awareness, emotional regulation, rest. Humanity learned something too. Endurance had limits. Evan felt his own. One day, after a long session with a multi-species council, he sat alone in the station's quiet wing. His hands trembled slightly, not fear, fatigue. Celira found him there. "You should have stepped away," she said. "I didn't want to break the momentum," Evan replied. She sat beside him, careful not to overwhelm. "Momentum is not worth losing yourself." He smiled faintly. "You sound human." "Perhaps," she said. "I am learning." That was the real change, she realized. Not classification, not rituals, mutual influence. When the Velith delegation departed, they left behind a message that spread faster than any report. "We believed survival meant isolation. We were wrong. Survival can also mean shared stillness." Years passed. The trial of those who stay became less of a ritual and more of a philosophy. Not everyone could do it. Not everyone should. But knowing it was possible changed how species approached difference. Celira eventually stepped down from frontline command to teach. Evan divided his time between Earth and the stars. They did not merge their lives completely. They did not need to. Their bond was not defined by proximity. It was defined by trust that distance would not erase understanding. On a quiet anniversary of the original touch, Evan returned to Lyrian Drift. The blue star still pulsed outside the wall, steady as ever. He and Celira stood together, hands not touching, comfortable in the space between. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. He considered the question fully. "No," he said, "but I respect it." She nodded. "That may be the most human answer you could give." Somewhere in the station, a new trainee practiced slowing their breath instead of tightening their control. Somewhere on Earth, a child learned that fear did not mean failure. Somewhere in Velith space, containment fields were lowered just a little more. The galaxy did not become safer. It became more honest. And in that honesty, humanity found its place, not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as those willing to stay when leaving would have been easier. The stars noticed.